In this keynote, Reverend Delphain Demosthenes will explore the relationship between knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, what they are, how they differ, and why discerning between them is essential for effective leadership and personal growth. Attendees will be guided to reflect on how these three elements show up in their lives, how to apply them with intention, and how they can deepen our ability to navigate complexity, make grounded decisions, and lead to clarity and purpose. Reverend Delphain Demosthenes is the Associate University Chaplain for the Protestant community at Brown University. With over 2 decades of ministerial work and counseling experience, he brings a deep commitment to healing, leadership development, and interfaith engagement. I actually met him in an interfaith fellowship about 2 years ago. He holds a Master of Divinity from Yale Divinity School and a Master of Social Work from New York University with a focus on psychotherapy. Reverend Demosthenes has served diverse congregations across New England, led racial healing initiatives, and overseen transformative programs at Brown, including Soul Food and the nationally recognized Faith in the Vaccine Project. Known for his steady presence, cultural insight, and commitment to equity, he continues to serve as a spiritual anchor and bridge builder across the community. And this isn't here, but Reverend Demosthenes also has a wife who is a colleague as well at Brown University, and a young son who is a junior in high school, plays soccer. And without further ado, Reverend Demosthenes. Yeah.
Well, a very good evening to all of you. How you guys doing this evening? Well, as a lot of preachers, I like to pivot. You know, I came early, so listen a little bit to how the panel went and heard a little bit that I'm among family members. And with that, I'm with people of faith. So I'm gonna take you to church for a minute. Is that all right? Okay, all right. So this evening, I'm grateful first and foremost to the Lord, and I'm grateful to Brother Onesie for this amazing opportunity. We met several years ago, and ever since then, we have a bond that's solid. So anytime he called me, I pick up. And when he asked me to do something, I say yes first before I understand what it is I'm saying yes to. Primarily because I have profound love for him and respect for him. And anything that I can do to be of service to him, and I say yes to. So Onesie, thank you, and I thank your team for extending this amazing opportunity for me to be here. So I'll put you at ease as you try to decipher where my accent is coming from. I was born in Haiti, so this is a Haitian brother trying to speak a little bit of English. So, but I promise you, if you pay attention, you'll leave here with something that will better your journey with God, with others, and with yourself. So again, thank you for this amazing opportunity. Anytime we have the privilege to do something, you better count it a privilege, because it does not have to be, and you will not always have it. Sitting here earlier, my son just texted me a brother that his son goes to school with, a brother that I know, another Haitian brother who has a son who goes to the same school as my son. My son just texted me and says he died yesterday. Whoa. Stuff like that was not supposed to happen. But it does happen. Where it doesn't matter what age you are, it doesn't matter your demographics. Sometimes you live longer than others, and sometimes when your number is called, it's called. So when you have the opportunity to do something, put your heart and soul into it, because it's a privilege. So with that said, I wasn't gonna, before I came here, my wife is a history professor. We met at Yale, and she's the scholar of the family. I'm the preacher. So she asked me, it's a talk, right? Not a sermon. I said, I do what I do. So it's great to be here this evening. In the book found in the New Testament, known as Ephesians, the second chapter. There's a passage that I love for myself. It reads, "For we are God's masterpiece." Let it dwell on you. We are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ Jesus so we can do the good things he had planned for us long ago. See, before you get into anything that you're about to do, your mindset of who you are is valuable. Your mindset is invaluable because you got to know who you are before you can take on certain tasks. Because otherwise, other people will tell you who they think you are, and other people will chart a path for you, which may not be the right path. So it is important for you to understand that you are indeed a masterpiece. It doesn't matter what so-and-so says. It doesn't matter what the economy is saying. It does not matter what social place you are. It does not matter what others are saying or not saying. You need to agree with the maker. The maker says you are a masterpiece, therefore you are a masterpiece. Now, other people will use different kind of criteria to contextualize you, to label you as certain things, because whatever the label you take on will have tremendous impact on where you go and what you dream and what you take on and what you do not take on. So I picked this text primarily to establish certain foundational things. If we're going to take on certain work, we need to know who we are. And who we are is that we are masterpieces. Now, some of us may have a hard time even say it to yourself. Some of us may have a hard time, let it dwell on you that you are indeed a masterpiece. What is a masterpiece? A masterpiece is one of the greatest work that the person does. The artist does, and the artist goes through a bunch of work. But this one is considered a very important one. That's you, that's you, that's you, that's you, that's you, that's you, and that's me. So we need to have our identity set firmly, even when we don't feel like it. Because we're not the one who created ourselves. The one who created us wants us to know that we are indeed a masterpiece, and that should settle it. And it says, created us anew in Christ Jesus so we can do the good things. That you will do amazing things. It's not a dream you came up with. It's not a dream that other people came up for you about. That's a dream that the maker set you aside to go after. Okay, you are a masterpiece, and therefore you're created in Christ Jesus to do good work. Not yesterday, before the foundation of the world, before you were a figment of your parents' imagination. The good Lord already set you apart to do amazing work. Now, you could be a masterpiece and you could have a great destination. You could have a great thing, but there will be a time, there will be a process that you need to go through. And when you're going through the process, however long it's going to take, it is invaluable for you to be wise. It is important for you to be wise. Now, when you say something like this, most people will ask themselves the question, it's like, clearly you're not talking about IQ. Because if you're talking about IQ, my IQ is off the chart. I mean, you wouldn't be here, you wouldn't teach here, you wouldn't work here, you wouldn't be where you are if your IQ was questionable. So we're not talking about that. And clearly you wouldn't be who you are if we're talking about emotional intelligence. Because you understand how you present in the world and you understand how other people show up in your face. So we're not talking about that. You're not struggling with that. So what are we talking about? Because we're not just bodies. For those of us who are believers, we are not just bodies. We're not just emotions. We are spirits. And our spirits, it's important for you to be spiritually wise. You could be academically wise, you could be emotionally wise, but spiritually, you may not be wise. So a good deal of what we're going to talk about, it will have tremendous practical relevance. But if that's all you get from it, it's all right. But we want you to also gain the spiritual wisdom that's important in this thing. And sitting here, there are a lot, the only reason I don't pull my head in all different places when you hear the news, when you hear what's going on, when you hear this, when you hear that, is because I understand there's another dimension that certain people don't have access to, that certain people are not talking about it, and you need to have access to it. You need to understand it so you don't panic when they're just talking about materiality, when they're just talking about social stuff. And those things are important, they're real, but they're not the only thing that make us who we are. They're not the only thing that we experiencing in this world. So there is a spiritual element to things. And as I was thinking about this, I'm reminded of a story in the Hebrew Bible and the Christian Bible that we call the Old Testament, and 1 King, the 3rd chapter. We are told of this young king who inherited a throne, and he realized something that all of us should realize. The masterpieces that we are, the great work that the Lord set us apart to do, that those great work will demand of us certain things that you'll feel you are incompetent to do. And there's a moment where you got to go through a process of acquiring certain things. And he realized that he positionally is the king, but yet he's unable to do the work. It doesn't mean he couldn't do the so as he's worshiping, and one night, the text says, God showed up to him and says, "What do you want? What do you want?" And the young king in that dream says, "What should I ask for? Should I ask for more money? Should I ask for the death of my enemies? Should I ask for that? Should I ask for that?" And then he came to his senses, to his spiritual senses, and he realized who he's talking to. Who he's talking to is the maker of the universe, who set him apart to do the work. And if the task is in front of him, and he feels incompetent, he feels like he cannot do the task, he realized he's in great company. He's in the right place for the right time. Because whenever God calls you to do something, you will know it's a God-sized dream, because you should have the same reaction that this young king had, which is, I can't do it. I can't do it. And that realization is not a bad thing. In fact, that realization is a good thing, because that realization will put you in the right place with your maker, and your maker will be like, great, great. And this young man says, I cannot do the work, and therefore, please grant me wisdom. Grant me wisdom so I can do your work that you set me apart to do. And as the text went, I'll read a little bit of it for you. And verse 10 of 3rd chapter of 1 Kings says, the Lord was pleased that Solomon had asked for this. So God said to him, since you have asked for this, and not for long life or wealth for yourself, nor asked for the death of your enemies, but for discernment and administering justice, I will do what you ask, and I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never be anyone like you, nor will there be. Moreover, I will give you what you have not asked for, both wealth and honor, so that in your lifetime you'll have no equal among kings. And if you walk in obedience to me and keep my decrees and commands, as David your father did, I will give you a long life. Then Solomon awoke. And if you go to the next chapter, you'll hear something very powerful. It's almost an addition of what was said here. Take me a minute. By the way, whatever you do, just don't get old, okay? When you get old, your eyes don't work as well as they used to. Your dexterity don't work as well as they used to. So that's why whatever you can do now, don't waste time. Go ahead, put a sense of urgency in it and get it done now. Verse 29 of the fourth chapter of First Kings says, God gave Solomon wisdom, very great insight, and a breadth of understanding, as measureless as the sand on the seashore. Solomon's wisdom was greater than the wisdom of all people, the people of the east, and greater than all the wisdom of Egypt. He was wiser than anyone else, including Ethan the Israelite, wiser than Heman, Hilkal, and Dotan, the sons of Mihal, and his fame spread to all the surrounding nations. He spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs number 1,005. He spoke about plants life, from the cedar of Lebanon to the hyssop, the growth out of walls. He also spoke about animals and birds, reptiles and fish. From all the nations, people came to listen to Solomon's wisdom, said by all the kings of the world who had heard of his wisdom. My brothers and my sisters here, I want to remind you that as a masterpiece set aside to do great work, if you follow the processes that the Lord will put you through, you will have presence or audience with the movers and shakers of your generations in society. It's not me saying it, it's the Lord Almighty who says it. So it's important for you to understand that, okay? Whoever got called, God prepared, okay? And after God's preparation, in the process of God's preparation, you will be put in front of the mightiest of your time. Solomon experienced that. So why did Solomon ask for wisdom? What it is that Solomon knew that compelled him to not ask for anything lesser than wisdom? Okay? Solomon understood something, that wisdom biblically stands for the last tier of a process. Begins with knowledge. Knowledge is instruction. Whenever the Lord calls you, the Lord will train you. Okay? So therefore, you got to go through a process. The process will end with wisdom, but it will begin with knowledge. Knowledge is information. Knowledge is seeking as much truth as this could take. You know, growing up in Haiti, my family always said, education is the key. Education is the key because it's the one thing that no one else can take away from you. They may take your money, they may take your physical possession, they may take this, they may take that, but they could never take your education, because once you know it, and it's yours. So information, you should be a voracious seeker of the truth. Learn from anybody. I'm preaching to the choir because you wouldn't get here if you didn't already know this. See, that's the beauty of preaching to the choir sometimes. You know what you're saying, is true because you can see it in their face. They're like, yeah, information is true. So whatever you do, learn it. Learn. Truth is truth. Now, you may not like the source of it, but learn, avail yourself to learn it. Okay? Don't limit yourself to say, it's coming from this source, it's coming from that source. Okay? For me, when I first got to the congregation, I'm Haitian, so with my accent and everything else, and I got called after divinity school. Before I got to Brown, I got called to a white church. And when I got there, and during the interview process, I got there, and as they interviewed me, I says, my name is Greek. My name has Greek sounding. My name, particularly my last name is Greek. I said I wouldn't fault you, okay? If for some reason you thought I was different, okay? A lot of people make that mistake. I said I wouldn't fault you. Now that I'm sitting here, do what others have done, which is evaluate me, and then you don't have to call me. I understand it's a congregation that's predominantly white and older. I don't look like you, and I said, don't have any pity for me. I'll find my right place. But if you bring me back, I play to win now. Okay, I'm giving you the opportunity to say no, thanks. Let me go. But if you bring me back for a second round, I play to win. And if you bring me back for a third round in front of the congregation, that's all she's gonna write, guys. I'm gonna love on these people, and next thing you know, I understand the process. I said they're gonna vote yes, and you're gonna get stuck with me. If you don't want me, don't play around with me. And that says, no, we love you. I says, okay. So once I got the job, okay, I went to divinity school, okay, and I got the job. Now I'm sitting with this. I've pastored before, but I've pastored a Black church, predominantly a Haitian church, right? So I didn't want to make the mistake in thinking that I already know what it is to pastor these folks. Many of us make the mistake. Sometimes we get to a new environment and we bring what we know, which is good. But there are new things to learn in this new environment that the Lord will bless you in. So I got there, I'm like, okay. My illustrations will have to change. Certain things will have to change, because what resonated with my Haitian people will not resonate with them the same way. It could be the same message, but I'm going to have to repackage it for them. So, and then I'm going to have to learn what moves them, what it is that they're interested in, okay? So, and what I said to myself is that I'm going to spend as much time as possible getting to know every family in this. So I said, you invite me to dinner, you invite me to your favorite place, teach me things that I don't know about. Because I didn't come out of my mother's womb knowing everything. I knew a lot about Haitian culture. I knew a lot about, the text, but I don't know how to pastor you. So I'm going to need you to teach me this. And I needed to be humble. And they took me to places, teach me a number of different cuisines, different things, and some stuff as I'm eating it. And sometimes I learned not to bring my wife, because my wife, she can't be a poker player, because you're like, oh, this thing needs some salt. But for me, whatever you put in front of me, I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm going to let you teach me what it's about. I came out a very, a liberal background when it comes to, pick one example. When it comes to gun rights and all this stuff and all these other things, but this is a community where there are a lot of veterans in it. This is a community where these folks, they go shoot their guns on a regular basis. One time, one asked me, you want to go shooting with us? I said, I'm good. That's my limit. But talk to me about, why you're interested in it. Talk to me about, what that represents for you, because it's not so much what I know, it's not so much my preference, but if I'm going to pastor you, I need to understand what makes you tick, and why, how you feel about this, why you like this, why you don't like this, And then I said, expose me to as many things as possible from your vantage point, because when it comes time for me to be your teacher, I'm not only gonna teach you what I've brought with me that will be new from you, but I want to integrate it with things that's already familiar to you, because otherwise you will not receive it. Okay, whatever we're gonna teach somebody else, if they have no reference point to it, they're gonna reject it. So it is in your best interest to acquire as much information as possible. Whatever the subject matter is, you should be a sponge. You should be a student. Put yourself wherever the knowledge, wherever the truth is, go seek it out. Okay? Sit with people that your friends may say, why are you talking to them? Because I'm trying to be wiser than I don't want to create an echo chamber. See, many of us feel comfortable, so we only hang with people that before we start, they could finish our sentences for us. That's good. But that doesn't make you the kind of person who could move through different settings. The kind of person that, when you hang out with whatever the culture is, whatever the thing is, they can see for a minute, they'll forget how you look. For a minute, they'll forget that you're not their bloodline because you learn to mimic them. Okay, you learn what's important to them. So information is invaluable. So learn it in the classroom, learn it. I had a friend when we were in divinity school, he's a judge now. I had a friend, this guy taught me a great insight. Wherever we would go in New Haven, he will pay very much attention to the person that society may ignore. I mean, from the doorman to the person who's cooking the food, he shows them tremendous value because he says, I need to know what's going on in that place. Because some of us create, situations where we're like, okay, yeah, this person is worthy of learning from. Okay? And this person is not worthy of learning from because look at the job they're doing. No. Just because they're doing that job, that doesn't mean that's all they know. Okay? They may know of certain things, and they may know of things that, okay, you're going to need. And then not only connecting with them, make them feel valuable, but also they're going to tell you things because whenever you show people some love, they're going to reciprocate. Okay? And we be in the cafeteria, he will know their name. Anybody, he will know whoever's serving the food, he will know all this stuff because he understands, okay, knowledge is power. Okay? It's not just the thing you're learning in the classroom because if you're going to lead over anybody later on, you need to understand people's sensibility, you need to understand culture, you need to understand all that stuff. So be a voracious seeker of information. And Solomon was that. Solomon did that. And that's why when we got to what he said later, his advice later to others, and in Proverbs, the 4th chapter, I'll read a little bit of it and then you'll see what Solomon says. Proverbs, the 4th chapter, beginning with verse 1. Solomon says, listen, my sons, to a father's instruction. Pay attention and gain understanding. I give you sound learning, so do not forsake my teaching. For I too was a son to my father, still tender and cherished by my mother. Then he taught me, and he said to me, take hold of my words with all your heart. Keep my commands, then you will live. Get wisdom, get understanding. Do not forget my words or turn away from them. Do not forsake wisdom. She will protect you. Love her, and she will watch over you. The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. Though it costs you all you have, get understanding. Cherish her, she will exalt you. Embrace her, she will honor you. She will give you a garland to grace your head and present you with a glorious crown. Solomon is really exalting anybody, particularly us, to get this thing that he called wisdom, which is the third tier. We just started talking about information, which is knowledge. And then Get as much of it as possible. And it's because you cannot have wisdom without knowledge. But knowledge is information. Okay? Because the more information you know, right, the more you could be wise if you do the next two things we're going to talk about. But if you don't avail yourself to learn as much, then sometimes you'll be in places where you'll be limited. You don't want to be somebody who could just. I got I got a son who's in 11th grade, and I'm always talking to him about things. I'm like, okay, listen, you want to be the kind of person, you know, whenever there's an opportunity to learn something, learn it, because you never know when that's going to come handy. So that's knowledge. But if all you have is information without understanding, you're going to struggle. Because understanding allows you to comprehend the sets of data, the sets of information that you have. You got to go through a process where you internalize it, you make it yours. So that process, it's called understanding. So you learn a lot of things, you got to bring it back. I mean, those of you in school, you understand that. If you're a teacher, you understand, okay, I'm pouring my heart out with a lot of information to you, but you got to go through a process of making it yours. You know, since we don't have a lot of time to get into the technical side of it, but the idea is, you know, some people call one of the ways you make something yours is to break it down to a first principle level. Okay, it's up there, bring it down to its lowest level. You know, it doesn't matter what the person is talking about. You know, and if you can, raise your hands. You know, can you break it down to to its smallest level so I can understand that? Because you know, I got simple mind. Because once they give you that, you can build upon it. Once you understand how something works at its smallest level, you can scale it up. And then when it's up, you can bring it down. You can play all kinds of games with it. See, and at one point, once I understood the mechanism, the compartments of a church, I'm like, I got it now. I got it. See, now I'm not just shooting in the dark. Okay, it's mine. I understand, okay, what the building blocks are. So you want to, whatever it is that you're going to sit at the top, you need to understand it in such a way where it's yours. Then you could connect the dots and you could start creating processes. You could start creating different things, okay, different schemes. And whether it's in sports, whether it's in academia, whether it's in life, once you understand what you're dealing with, then you know, I'm reading this great book where it's talking about essentially that everything is a system. Okay? And earlier we were talking about, if the Trump administration and Project 25 and so on and so forth. But if you put it in the context of a system, you'll understand that, okay, he's not the only one. There are many others in that system playing certain role. And then you have to understand, what does the system rely on? And you have to understand, okay, how does the system nourish itself and what can stifle the system, what can kill the system. But if you do not understand how the system works, you're going to struggle to put together an effective response. You know, I love sports. Michael Jordan back then, when he was playing with Phil Jackson, when they were playing in the triangle system, you know, until teams discover that's what's happening, and it seems like gibberish. Why the ball moving around like that? Why the guys are doing this? Soccer does that, other people does that. See, right now, if you pay attention, you can see there's a system. There's a system to this. It's going to flood the airway with some provocative things. and get so many people riled up about the provocative things. And behind the scene, he's going to move certain things that we're not paying attention to, and the people are not having the same level of reaction that they should have, because all of a sudden he's talking about Greenland, he's talking about this, he's talking about that. As bad as those things are, one has to ask oneself the question: what else is being moved while he has us preoccupied with his end? From day one, he discovered something about humanity. He discovered that, we chase shiny objects. We chase the latest things. We chase certain things. We chase, and he created the news cycle. See, I wouldn't do that, because I said to myself, there's good news, there's bad news. And I only want to get known for the good news. But there's somebody who discovered something, who realized that at some point, if you say something long enough, right, you're going to get some people who buy it. So therefore, they're not going to necessarily play by certain playbook. They're going to keep saying certain things, because it floods people's mindset. And, I don't know the math as well, but remember one time when I realized this, I'm like, whoa, this is scary. If I say something to you right now, whatever I say, it's 50% you'll say yes, or 50% you'll say no. That's a high percentage. That's a high percentage. See, like, I may say it's disingenuous. I may say it's horrible as a preacher, as a godly person. I may not take that chance. I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to try to tell the truth as much as possible. But when I know, if I put something out there, okay, it has that high of a possibility that somebody going to say, I remember one time I finished my service at the university, and this guy, well-educated guy, cornered me after the service. He knew I was Asian, and that was before the election. And then he started telling me about this nonsense about the Haitians eating the dogs and the cats and all this other stuff. I said, this guy's going to win the election. You know why he's going to win the election? Because people like you. Because you telling me now, you're not sure that you 100% verifiable certainty that the Haitians did not do that. I'm like, dude, you're an Ivy League graduate. You got all kinds of stuff. I mean, you're older than me. And then you're sitting here telling me to give you proof that the Haitians don't eat stuff like that. I'm like, if that's what he knows. That's what he knows. He knows, okay, at some point, it's not even whether something is true. It's if it's out there, somebody's gonna draw certain conclusions, and somebody will say, you know what? I really don't know. And he's willing to take that bet. He's willing to take that out. So I'm digressing a little bit, but the point is, you need to understand the system. You need to understand, okay, use the information, and whatever you're going to use later, understand how in that ecosystem, how does that information fit, and what you're going to do with it, and how you could use it. But if all you know is the information and you make it yours, it's wonderful, but that's not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is wisdom. You become wise when you begin to use the information that you know, the information that you understand. You begin to use it, and when you're using it, that's wisdom. Wisdom means, based on the information you know, the information that you understand, you're gonna apply it with the best mean that you have available to you to create the best outcome that you can for the best, with the best approach possible. So the idea is wisdom, you become wise when you begin to apply the things that you know. And a brother of Jesus, James, in his letter says, it's not enough to know something. It's better to know it and to do something about it. So now that, okay, we know things, you guys just spent days and hours learning great information. You're going to internalize them, but as you go home with them, figure out, okay, what little of it that you're going to be able to, that you're going to apply. Okay? We don't want to be people who have a lot of like notebooks of facts. Okay, we understand it. We could teach it, but we don't do anything with it. So the truth that you know will make you free if you apply the truth. So the things that you learn during this conference that will enable you first and foremost, allow you to be the best leader that you could be for yourself, to yourself. Because before the Lord will call you to lead others, the Lord will call you to lead yourself. And the information that you learn should make you aware of not only your strengths, but also your weakness. What are your Achilles heel? You know, before the Lord elevate me to a certain point, I thank God time and time again. I said, I thank you that coming out of seminary, you didn't give me a post that I couldn't handle. Because there's nothing more deadly is to have something you don't have the character to keep. You spent years building something, and your character is going to destroy it in a minute. You know, many people, what kills them is not that they don't have information. They're a wizard when it comes to information. They're a wizard when it comes to understanding. They can't apply it because they have not fixed their character issues. Character is the greatest thing you could have as a leader. Okay? Because I tell people at my church or now at Brown all the time, I said, you know, I'm not going to get into it with you. I can't get into it with you because if I go mano a mano with you in the way that you want me to go mano a mano, you curse me out, I curse you out, which is the response that you want, now I lose my platform. Because nobody is going to want to hear me because you'll be the first one trip on the carpet to go tell them, look at what the rep said. But you're not going to say what you said. So there's certain things that the Lord is elevating you to. The Lord wants to elevate you to. But the Lord is waiting for you to start applying the wisdom that you know your Achilles heel. You know that certain things, if it becomes knowledgeable until you fix it, you could kiss your platform goodbye. So coming out of divinity school, you know, I didn't have what I have now. So the Lord was gracious to me. He sent me to a group of people who love me. And I was in the desert cultivating certain things. And at times I feel like, okay, why I didn't get certain posts that my friends got. And it took me years to realize the Lord protected me. Because had I got a certain post, I didn't have that, you know, I'm just being real with you, okay? I didn't have the character. I didn't have to hold on to it. So the question that you're not posing, I'm asking you. In this day and age, where you're on camera, formally or informally, what it is that cameras are picking up that you're not aware of. And now, Sometimes you rush so quickly up front, and people got certain things on you, right? And you don't know it, and you up front, and then pretty quickly somebody call you and says, listen, you're gonna have to kill this thing. You say, no, I'm not killing it. Says, you sure? You sure? I got this on you. Now, your people want you to keep it going, but you can't keep it going because you know the people whom you're going and says, the Lord says, let my people go, got something on you that you're gonna have to back up. Now, the people cannot understand that because you weren't ready for it. So what I'm saying is this: the greatest level of leadership is self-leadership. Self-leadership, as Miles Monroe said, enable you to know, before I used to say yes to a lot of things. Now I'm beginning to say yes to as many things, but asking follow-up questions. By asking follow-up questions, I says, okay, well, the things that you're inviting me to do, I'm not a scholar, I'm not this, I'm not that, but this is what I could do. If you put me in front to do this, you will be pleased. But if you put me in front to do the thing that you just said to me, I'll sound like a bubbling idiot. Okay, you'll be disappointed, I'll be disappointed. Okay, I don't serve your cause. But if you allow me to do exactly what I'm good at, okay, with some stretching, I'll be able to do the things that you need. So self-leadership is important, So, and at a place, at an Ivy League school, I got an invitation like the other day. This person called me and says, "We're doing something on AI. We want you to come and give a response on AI." I said, "Who's on the panel?" Okay, now you got this AI expert, and then I will still do it. But he says, "I want you to talk about what the Pope says." Scratch my head, I says, "I'm not Catholic. It doesn't mean that I couldn't learn it, but I didn't learn it. I not only don't know too much about AI stuff, and I definitely did not study the Catholic, the Pope responds to it. And at the time you calling me to do it, I won't have time to educate myself in it. And then you're going to put me in a panel, okay, to respond, not from a Protestant perspective, but to respond as if I'm Catholic, about what the Pope says. And then you're going to have this other person who's an expert in machine learning, all this other stuff. Now it's going to sound like this bubbling idiot, okay? Because I'm over my skis, I'm over my head. Because both subject matter, I don't know. Okay? So, but I said, guess what? I got my cousin who's finishing a manuscript on this very subject. He would love to do it for you, and I'll make it. I said, and then I called my cousin, I got something for you, man. And he says, yeah. So I connect them, and not trying to be selfish and not putting myself down, but it's understanding, okay, what do I know? And where can I do the right things for the Lord? And where I should just say no, because I'm not that guy. Okay? So self-leadership is important. And as you begin to lead yourself, and you'll understand, okay, where you can show up, what you can firm up, and then your Achilles heel, and then okay, the kind of boundaries to put around certain things that and just like the Lord told Peter, Satan is waiting to sift you, but I pray, to put certain boundaries around you. So you have to be able to put certain boundaries around you. And if you do that, if you lead yourself well, and knowing as much as you do know, and being you can be as wise for the time that the Lord is calling you to do the things that the Lord has set you apart to do, not before, and not after, but at the right time. So always be mindful and have conversation with the Lord about spiritual wisdom. Spiritual wisdom will enable you to advance to a point where people will, you will be in front of kings and the movers and shakers of your world, because the wisdom you'll have will be a wisdom that comes from the Maker. With that said, I'll pause and take questions if you have any. Take donations if you have also any. Yes.
Well, I was so tickled a second ago by the fact that you got called to an AI panel. I'm just like curious how that even happened. But I guess my question for you is like, in your faith journey and walk with God, like especially being in the Ivy League space, how do you maintain, that strong faith and like growing that, and also like taking in the perspectives of folks from other religions, other faith backgrounds, like what does it mean for you to gain insight from them as you're doing your own walk?
It begins with you. And what I like to say, this thing has to be personal. You can't begin by saying the God of Abraham, the God of Jacob, the God of Paul, but you have to be able to say the God of them. What does that look like? And how does that show up in this time and place? And what it is that's core to my faith, and I'm willing to pay the price, because the scripture also said, if you want to live a righteous life, okay, you will be persecuted. Now, some of us go looking for things, okay, and we call it persecution. It's not persecution. That's just you. And because you're smart enough, you know there's a hornet's nest there. Okay? You go and you poke it, and then now you say that's persecution. No. You could have avoided. Okay? Part of what I discover is this. On a daily basis, I have to understand, okay, what is the essence of Christianity? What it is that's really core to me. Not the faith that my mother had, not the faith that cousin had, not the faith that other people had, but my faith. Okay? And then when somebody asks me to speak on something, and as somebody who's preaching every Sunday, okay, I have to think about it. All right? I know this is not a church context. Okay? Now, and I know I sign a paperwork because Brown is very inclusive. Okay? No one sent me to Brown, right? I went there understanding that this is an inclusive space. So I have to say to myself, okay, where does my faith fit within the understanding of being inclusive? And this is a tension. I have not fully resolved it. And I, on a daily basis, I'm working with it, because there are things that have not shown up. And for that, I'm grateful, right? And I wouldn't even know what those things are, but the things that, and I'm staying grounded to be able to recognize the voice of God, not my own personal ambition, because sometimes you get yourself into a situation, it was only for a season, and you're willing to do everything to hold on to it. And sometimes the Lord bring you in a place for a season to take you to another level, and you would know that until the environment becomes a little bit hostile. Because the Lord doesn't move you sometimes with just positive stuff. Sometimes the Lord moves you with some negative stuff. And this is not something that anybody else should answer for you. This is something that only you can answer, right? Because based on your core, because these places will force you to crystallize what it is that you truly believe, and stand on it, and not wishy-washy about it. That's why, I tell people in my office, I don't bring too many things, and I keep it as bare bones as possible, because I recognize these institutions exist for their own purposes. It doesn't mean their purposes don't align with mine sometimes, but I understand. There's one thing I quickly understand. These institutions also create compartments. When there's a fire within the department, it will be that department that goes down. And they'll do that as much as possible to save the ship. So anybody working in those spaces and you do not understand that, then you need to go back to ground zero and understand where you are and understand, okay, you could do your entire career and your department never catch on fire. But if your department gets on fire, okay, the way they're structured is that there's certain things. I remember one time I was talking with my boss. She's amazing, and there's certain things, she was telling me. She was like, "Listen, don't get involved with this." And then there's certain things she was telling me and said, "I don't want to know." For a minute, I was a little kid, and then I go back and say, "Oh, I understand. You protecting me as much as you can, but you want the space." This is my thing. This is Dell's project. And when and if there's a fire, Dell is going to have to fall on the sword to protect the department. So I said all this to say that, they're wonderful places to do what we do, okay? But they're not my church. They're an academic space, okay? I can't go there and pretend that I'm in my church. But I also can't go there and stay there where I feel like my conscience is being violated on a regular basis. So, and that's why I said it's a tension. How long I get to hold on to it, I don't know. But I'm at peace with the fact that, and I don't fall in love with the fact that, okay, I'm working and I love the place. It's amazing. And it's doing a lot of wonderful things for me and for my family. But I also recognize, okay, where does my allegiance lie? It's with my maker. Because just like I started out telling you guys, one day I'm going to have to meet my maker. And then I need to be able to say, okay, I did the best that I could do with what was given to me. And so it's a long way of answering your question to say that if you got peace with it. Now, I got colleagues of mine who are pastors who we couldn't do what you do. I said, that's fine. And I got colleagues who are even worse, who says, okay, you will sell them. I said, that's fine. That's fine. Because I understand who I am, I understand what's important to me, and I understand. And I said, okay, I love the fact that I have access to student and staff in a way while they do their journey at Brown. And in those environments, they allow me to minister to them, and for that, I'll make some concession that does not violate my core. They may violate my some secondary theological things that's not salvation based, but they don't violate my. And does that make sense? Yes, my brother.
How do you feel about certain pastors kind of being used as political props, or like during campaign season, especially like within the Republican Party, you'll see certain pastors, so typically the black pastor, they'll have a black pastor to like promote whatever their agenda is, but these same politicians they're endorsing don't promote the most Christian values. So do you feel like it's a conflict of interest for a pastor to be in politics in general, and specifically like within the Republican Party against this last election?
Well, that's a great question. So I'll answer the back end of the question to walk my way to the front end of the question. And that is, I believe what certain people call whole life discipleship. By whole life discipleship, I believe, okay, in a kingdom base. Okay, God created us to be God's ambassador here. As ambassador, okay, to let the light of God reflect like here as it is in heaven. So, with that being the case, I think all domains belong to the Lord. See, all domains should have people of a good conscience, people who are believers of God in them. Okay? And if I'm going to complain about something, I shouldn't complain about it and say, okay, well, people of good conscience, people who are believers should be outside of it. Because if politics influence our day-to-day life, right? And God wants to establish God's kingdom here. So therefore, the voice of God should be at the table. So who God is selecting to be at the table to carry his voice, I know it's not me because I don't have that skill set. But I don't doubt it will include some of the people I listen to here because you guys got the gift. Okay? And the interest. So now, sometimes you get you get pastors who love to fly too close to celebrity. Whether there be a politician, whether there be movie stars, social influencers, and I'm not saying, okay, I'm exempt from it. I pray every day to not fall there. But sometimes you get people who love to be in those venues. And sometimes when you get a request, right, from a politician, from anybody for that matter, you have to be able to ask many follow-up questions. What it is that they're asking you to do, and can you do what you do within what they're asking you to do? And sometimes some will be like, spot on. I'm glad you bring it up because we wouldn't even think about it. Okay? But some may tell you, no. And at that point, if there's a conflict of interest between your understanding of who God is, your understanding of your relationship with God, and versus what this person is asking, once you violate that, you lose your platform with God, first and foremost. Now, your people may not know that right away, but you just violated. Because the only reason you're saying yes is because you want to appease man more than God. Paul had said to us very clearly, he says, okay, the way he lived his life is not to appease any man but God. And so, as much as I know we should be in every sector, okay, in education and business and all walks of life, and medicine, believers should be in all of those things because the word of God has a view and God has opinion, God has interest in all those things. In fact, I don't get to do what I do without somebody regulating the roads that I drive in. So politics is a good thing. Now, the ones who are doing it sometimes may be misguided, and the way we fix it is to get the right people in for the right reason. And knowing who you are, now, just like I said, I don't think it's any different than my role that I have at Brown than somebody who's, you have to be willing to serve a one term. You have to be willing to not get invited. Because when you speak your conviction, sometimes the institution, the environment may say, no, we don't want that.
and then you have to be able to be able to live with yourself. I'm trying to get better with criticism and criticizing specific individuals because I don't know all the details of their lives, and I don't know behind the scene what's going on. So I'll speak in generality, but I couldn't pinpoint it as this pastor, that pastor, because I don't know what's going on, and some of them are dealing with greater things that no one brings me into those conversations. So, but I pray that if an invitation was to come to work with a political group, they would genuinely would want my opinion as I understand the scriptures, rather than using me as a vehicle to carry their agenda, which may be misaligned with God's agenda. But again, this is a tension that all of you are going to have to deal with, whether you're a student or whether the job that you're in academia or in politics, you're going to have to, because sometimes your boss may come to you and says, listen, you know we need to meet quota, right? And you're like, okay, why are you talking to me about that? And then they want you to fudge some numbers. Or there may be things that you know that's not right. If that information becomes whatever, it would not be good for the institution. So how do you live with yourself in those things? Never easy. Never easy. And I'm not going to sit here and give you a simplistic answer either. Because when you get into those spaces, you'll realize they're a lot more complicated. You would need to nuance them as much as possible, understanding what it is that you did sign, and what it is that you cannot say, and where you're going to keep your conviction. So I'm long-winded, but I don't know if I did. Anything else? It's a sign I talk too much.
Or you just answered all the questions in your talk.
I'll take the offerings right now, okay? Go up the truck is open. Thank you.
One more cohesive round of applause for Cal.